Coming to you from Brick House in downtown Brooklyn, this is 112BK. On the show today, looking into the taxi suicides, Brooklyn Pride as Pride Month begins, and the New York City Transit Authority president answers tough questions, and Starbucks sensitivity training. Hi, and thanks for joining us. We've got a packed show today. I'm joined by my producer, Ross Tuttle.
Hello, Ashley.
Hi, Ross.
How are you?
Fantastic.
So yeah, we're going to be joined in a moment by a reporter who's been covering the taxi driver suicides in the city. 5 so far this year, 1 just this past week, and their livelihoods have really been challenged and devastated by these app-based driver services. So
Wow.
we'll talk about that. But first, I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about the Valerie Jarrett, Roseanne Barr situation.
You know, I do. And I do want to talk about it just because this is another one of those times when I think people tend to conflate free speech with being absolvent of consequences for your actions and what you say. I see a lot of people trying to compare what happened to Roseanne to what happened to Colin Kaepernick, which is really interesting to me.
I didn't see that.
I see it a lot online because these are very, very, like, not just different issues, but also different actions.
You mean with him being blackballed
Him being
and her
blackballed
show being
versus
canceled?
her show being canceled.
For having free speech?
You know, there's a lot going on there, and it's a very nuanced conversation, more nuanced than I think we have time to get into. But I think the big problem right now with the commentary that's happening around the show is that people are unwilling to deal with the fact that the show is called Roseanne, and Roseanne is the star of the show. And if the star of the show is doing and saying things like this, like, you know, the show might get canceled. And it really sucks, I think, for the crew members who have now lost access to money and livelihood that they would have had otherwise. But otherwise, I don't feel bad for Roseanne. And I don't think anyone really does.
Or should.
Or should, maybe. But I don't get to tell anybody who they feel bad for.
Well, unless it was the Ambien speaking.
Yes, it was probably the Ambien.
Then we got to talk to the drug manufacturer.
Absolutely, who already said that their drug does not cause racism.
Right, they did.
Publicly. They absolutely did.
What times we are in.
What a time to be alive.
Yes. So I think we've got Skanda Kadirgamar on the phone right now. He's the freelance journalist who's been following the story about the New York City cabbies and the recent spate of suicides. Skanda, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course, yeah. Great to
Skanda,
be on.
people may not be paying much attention to this and think it isn't a big deal, but it obviously is. Can you tell us why there's that disconnect in perception versus reality when it comes to, you know, these taxi drivers who are, you know, ending their lives over this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the sad aspects of a story like this is that taxi drivers, as workers who provide a service, are often taken for granted, especially in the sense that we now have these ride-hailing apps that, you know, add another level of convenience. But unfortunately, the economics of those apps really have contributed to a cycle by which a lot of the more traditional drivers in the city have been left behind and really deprived of both a livelihood and economic security. And I think one of the reasons people should be paying attention is this has become a pattern now. New York just lost its fifth traditional driver in the space of 5 months, a man by the name of Humane Kenny Chow, who, after realizing that he basically couldn't support his family under this sort of crushing $700,000 debt he'd taken out to support his medallion, he wasn't able to provide education for his daughter. His wife had recently been diagnosed with cancer. He ended his life about a block away from Gracie Mansion. He parked his car, and then he jumped into the East River. And that was 2 weeks ago that this all happened. His body was only recently recovered.
Is there something that people don't appreciate about this? We talk about, app-based driving services, but you just mentioned about the debt that he was under for the medallions. Can you talk a little bit about that and why it is such a crushing debt, and how now, since their incomes are being halved in some cases, that's just something that is no longer sustainable?
I think what a lot of people in New York don't understand is the historical role medallions have played in the taxi industry. It's gone from the way the city regulates the number of cabs on the road to a way that cabbies were planning their retirements or their children's education, or putting away for emergencies like a loved one falling ill. Traditionally, or for a very long time, the city of New York supported the value of the medallion but stopped doing that. And then on top of that, companies like Uber and Lyft entered recently, and they have no such regulation. They can put as many cars as they want on the road.
Whew. Well, Skanda, thank you so much for talking to us about this. Please continue to do this important work and important reporting, and we'll keep our eyes peeled. Maybe we'll have you back soon. Coming up, with June just around the corner, we'll talk Brooklyn Pride. Then a report from an MTA Town Hall. Plus, a Starbucks employee talks about the company's Day of Racial Sensitivity training. Stay with us. In June 1969, the police raided Greenwich Village's Stonewall Inn in what became the catalyst for a series of demonstrations, some violent, credited with paving the way for progress in LGBTQ rights in America. That's why June is Pride Month. To kick it off on 112BK a day or two early, but to give extra time for planning, we spoke recently with Mickey Heller, co-chair of Brooklyn Pride, and Floyd Rumohr, executive director of the Brooklyn Community Pride Center. Here's that conversation. Mickey, Floyd, thank you so much for being here to talk about Brooklyn Pride and also the work that you guys are doing in the community. It's fascinating work. I can't tell you how happy I am to have you. Mickey, can you tell me a little bit about this year's theme, what you're really excited about?
Well, this year the theme is Don't Hide Your Pride.
Don't hide your pride.
It's our 22nd year, and we're really excited to be doing this again, our parade, our festival, and actually an entire week of events. One of them, two new events. One is an ice cream social on Wednesday night. But we'll get into that more, because I know we like our ice cream.
Yes.
But we're so proud of what's going on here and being able to openly walk the streets and feel proud of who we are, whether it's the festival, our stages, our parade. We're going to have a good time this year.
We definitely are. I'm going to be there. And Floyd, you have something special to celebrate this year, which is your organization moving from, I believe it was downtown BK to Bed-Stuy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
How's that going? Why'd you guys decide to make that move?
Well, there are many reasons. Bedford-Stuyvesant is a hotbed of neighborhood activity. We wanted to be in the middle of it, right there at Restoration Plaza. Bedford-Stuyvesant also has one of the highest new HIV infection rates, along with Crown Heights, where we will expand in 2020 into the Bedford Union Armory. And we're looking to work with our community partners to help reduce these new HIV infections.
Absolutely. And is that specifically why you chose Restoration Plaza? We've had so many people here on recently who have either had their billings in Restoration Plaza or have some help over there in Bed-Stuy from Restoration Plaza. How is that informing the work that you're doing in the community there?
Well, the community is informing us. It's a community hub, if you will. There's lots of activities going on there, everything from workforce development to the arts. And we're looking at collaborating with them to expand the reach into the LGBTQ plus community.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Mickey, you've been working with this community and in this with the parade specifically for 2 decades.
Well, the parade itself is, well, the Brooklyn Pride is now in its 22nd year.
Right.
It's my 10th year with the Brooklyn Pride organization itself.
Wow.
And I'm actually glad Floyd is here because I was one of the original board members for the Brooklyn Community Pride Center when they formed. But being part of this community is just an amazing experience. The love, the affection, the warmth, it really is a family. And when you walk down whether you watch the parade or walk the parade or in the parade, you really sense that intimacy. No offense to our sisters and brothers over in Manhattan when they have their 7-hour parade.
Right.
Ours is about 90 minutes long, and from start to finish, you feel the love.
Wow. Can you tell me, like, over the time that you've been involved with the parade, What have you guys learned that's like unique about the Brooklyn LGBTQ family? Aside from the close list.
That's exactly it. Brooklyn is a family. And I know our former borough president, Marty Markowitz, used to call Park Slope the lesbian capital of the world.
Yes.
But it really is family. When you see the same-sex couples walking down the streets of Fifth Avenue with the baby strollers. I know one of the owners of Bogota Latin Bistro and Midi, Fareed and George. They're one of our special parts in our heart. They have 2 children now, and they are a wonderful family. And they really epitomize what Brooklyn LGBT community is all about. They're involved, they have business, they spend their money, they raise their kids. And that's what's so special about Brooklyn. It's not everyone from so far away, although we have people from overseas coming over for the parade and for our week of events, which I'll tell you about in just a moment, or a whole week of events. But it really is the intimacy and the love that takes care of Brooklyn Pride.
And I love that you talk about that intimacy and that you talk about that family. And I know, Floyd, one of the things that has been really important to you is the word inclusion and making sure that there is a place for everybody, in this parade that's celebrating something very specific, but is actually for everyone. How do you accomplish that?
It's a complex process because I think we're in a linguistic universe that is struggling to convey the different gender identities that are beginning to evolve.
Right.
And this is where our logo has come from, this sort of crisscross hashtag. Some people think it's a hashtag, a plus sign, streets intersecting. It represents diversity and inclusion, which is a very important value to us. And we hope to continue to reach out to very diverse communities. How do we accomplish that? By asking people. We make explicit that we want people of color, women, transgender people to come in, check out our center, and tell us what kind of programming they'd like to see happen.
That's fantastic. And I know that you said before that your organization has been working with the AIDS community and specifically with those members. Obviously, you talk about the growing numbers in Bed-Stuy. So there's more and more of the same people who you want to feel included who need services like this. How do you offer that to people? Like, how are you incorporating that message into Pride this year?
Well, that's a twofold question.
Yes,
how do we deal with that? Through community partnerships. We see our role as a community center to leverage the expertise that exists in our community, and there's a lot of it.
Right.
One of those community experts is Canva's Young Men's Health Project. They have a full-time presence at the Brooklyn Community Pride Center, and their mission is to reach out to young men who have sex with other men, 13 to 29, mostly in communities of color, and transgender women, to reduce the HIV infection rates within that specific community. And they are really knocking it out of the park. With respect to how do we do that during Pride season, we are working with Canva this year in the Pride Parade with a float. So we and Canva together, along with City Point, one of our sponsors for an event that we're doing, are working together on the float in Pride season to help get the message out. Yeah.
And if I could piggyback on what Floyd said, what we do at Brooklyn Pride, one of the things that I'm so proud of is we have our multicultural street festival during the day from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. And yes, you will have your calzones and your arepas and all those trucks, but you also have a plethora of service organizations that are there between churches, HIV testing. One of our biggest sponsors, AIDS Healthcare Foundation, has 6 spots along the festival where they do free testing, and they even have their gift store out of the closet, which is a wonderful secondhand store. BCPC has a booth. Canva has a booth. So when we go along that festival, which has now been expanded from 1st to 9th Street, you will see all the vendors, but you'll see all the service organizations. And I always love to tell them that they might not have the lines like these big booths have, but they serve a purpose. They change lives.
They absolutely do. That's absolutely correct. And Mickey, you know, we only have so much time left, which sucks because I feel like I want to ask both of you a million more questions, but I do want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about that ice cream social that I might want to come to.
I'll be very quick and tell you about the week of events. We start Monday evening at 7 o'clock at Brooklyn Borough Hall. Borough President Eric Adams does an event where the Borough President honors individuals. On Wednesday night, we have our ice cream social at Ample Hills Creamery. And Ample Hills, for that month of June, has a special flavor called Baby I Was Churned This Way. And for every pint that's bought during the month of June, they're going to donate $1 to Brooklyn Pride. But on that Wednesday night, you come and have free ice cream or donate to Brooklyn Pride. That's Wednesday.
What's in there?
Oh,
I gotta know.
I tell you, it is hazelnut ice cream studded with chocolate-covered, rainbow-colored sunflower seeds.
Okay,
But let me finish by saying Thursday is our comedy night at Club Ecstasy. Lois Thompson, who is an incredible comic, has 6 wonderful laugh-filled people coming in to make you laugh. It's all free. At Friday night, we have an event with AIDS Healthcare Foundation right across the street from Out of the Closet. And of course, Saturday, our 5K run starts the day, already sold out. We've reached the limit. Our multicultural festival from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. with 2 stages of entertainment, and our family fun zone for children. Families, we have face painters, balloon animals, wonderful time. And of course, the only Twilight Parade in the Northeast starts at 7:30 sharp from the corner of 5th Avenue and St. John's, and we go gaily forward to 9th Street.
Wow. Oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. So really quickly, Mickey, beyond June, what are you looking forward to?
Beyond June, we have events every month, just social events. We have one group called Dine with Pride, where monthly we meet at a restaurant and we get people together in the community. And then we also have a Drink with Pride, where we'll meet with a bar. We're also looking forward to working more with BC, well, I call it BCPC, Brooklyn Community Pride Center, to just continue to get the word out to the communities. We've been proud to expand all throughout different parts of Brooklyn, but we want to go further. There are people all over the borough that need to hear the story.
How about you, Floyd?
I would love to shamelessly plug 2 things.
Give it to me.
One is June 9. We're having a party at City Point Mall. Come out and meet the retailers and drink, dance, and be happy there. It's free, totally free. You can check it out on our website. It's going to be from 9 to 11 on June 9th on Saturday. And then the following week on June 14th is the Community Leadership Awards and Gala, our biggest fundraiser of the season. Cocktails, dinner, dancing, all honoring Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, Jasmine Thomas from City Community Development, and Chubb Personal Risk Services, all with incredible leaders of the LGBTQ+ community.
Do I have a moment to say our Grand Marshals? Our Grand Marshals this year are Juliet Howard and her wife, Norma Jennings, Drag Queen Story Hour, and Lyosha Gorskov from Rusa Pride.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I can't tell you how important it is, the work that you're doing in the community. I hope that there is a huge turnout for Brooklyn Pride.
Thank you. Look forward to having you with us.
Oh, I'll be there.
Come on out on June 14.
You'll see me. It's a favorite New York City pastime, beating up on the MTA. Given all its woes, overcrowded platforms and cars, delays, decrepit stations, outdated technology, inadequate access for those with disabilities, more delays, summers of hell, flying cockroaches, and the impending apocalypse, the agency is a deserving target. The same could be said of anyone brave enough to stand up at a town hall and take questions about the MTA's current state of affairs and its plans to address some of them. Well, that's what Andy Byford, president of the New York City Transit Authority, did on Tuesday night at an event hosted by Brooklyn Assembly member Robert Carroll. Our own Shirin Barghi was in attendance, and she's with us now. Welcome, Shirin.
Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Also, Ross is with us again, but you know. How's it going, Ross?
Hi, Ashley. Happy to be here.
Shirin, tell me what happened at this meeting.
So this was the first general town hall held by NYC Transit head Andy Byford. It was at the John Jay School in Park Slope. And about, I want to say, about 70 people showed up. He started the town hall by talking about some of his new plan to fix the subway.
And what was the number on that again?
About 70 people. Oh, the fixing?
Yeah, the fixing
So it's a multi-billion-dollar plan.
Oh, yeah.
And they say, so initially it said, like he mentioned, 18. But they say, but there's a phase 2, which is also going to be like $17 billion. So I'm guessing like.
So that's like what, like $35 billion?
Yeah, like more than 35. Yeah.
Where's that money coming from?
I have no idea.
Does he have a plan for that?
He's like,
He
I
has,
don't know.
well, one of the questions was that how he wants to navigate the very fraught relationship between Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo, because you know those two.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oil and vinegar.
So he says that when you have a state of emergency, and that's what Governor Cuomo basically called the state of New York City subway, a state of emergency. He said that and housing. Well, he said that no, it's okay. So he basically mentioned that when you have a state of emergency, both parties, no matter what the conflicts are, will come to the table and they will basically talk, and hopefully, and he said that we should focus on the positive and not on the negative.
Isn't that what they all say when they're in the leadership position? Don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive.
Especially when you're sitting in a train where it doesn't have, like, the AC's broken and you basically have to go from Sunset Park to Harlem. Just focus on the positive.
Just focus on the positives.
And so you asked a question, right?
I did.
It was interestingly received, right?
It was a little bit like feather ruffly, I want to say. So my question was about recent reports that say that MTA chief, Joseph Lota, has several other positions, namely at NYU Langone and Madison Square Garden, as well as other positions that could prove to be some conflict that could pose conflicts of interest. And, especially now that we have this state of emergency, doesn't the New York City subway deserve a chief that's like conflict-free and full-time, especially since the reports also mention that Joseph Lota is scaling back on the hours he devotes to the MTA,
So you mean to tell me that the person, like the chief of the MTA, also has several other jobs?
Yeah. And my question is, why, I just don't understand. They brought in Andy Byford from Toronto. He was like the CEO of the Toronto Transit Commission.
Toronto has 2 subway lines.
It has 2 subway lines. Ooh. And when you think of New York City and the state of the subways we have right now, the budget has been mismanaged since the 1990s. They say the 1990s was the golden era for the New York City subway. But ever since 2010, which is when I moved to New York, actually, it's just been going downhill. So.
And I've only been here for 4 years, but Ross, you've been here longer. What have you seen with the subway system?
I ride my bicycle.
Ross rides his bicycle to his home, which, to be perfectly honest, is about 2 blocks from Brick House. Just letting everybody know.
Wow.
But Assemblymember Robert Carroll was there. He was kind of the mediator. He was the moderator of the event.
He was. And there were a lot of people there who especially, I think I found this really interesting, that the subway line that seems to be the most in trouble, just judging by the town hall yesterday, was the F train. There were a lot of people who had many gripes about the F train, and at some point Bobby Carroll was like, hey, who else is here for the F train? Because we all lined up to ask questions, and maybe 20 hands showed up to there.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there were a lot of groups there, from the Rise and Resist group, which is, which advocates for more accessibility, and we had a couple of advocates here talking about accessibility and the importance of having more accessible subway stations.
Shirin, thank you so much for going to this meeting and for relaying this information to us. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back soon, I'm sure, talking about the MTA.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tuesday was Starbucks' day of racial sensitivity training when they closed 8,000 stores in the U.S. It was their response to the actions of the manager of a Philadelphia store that led to the arrest of 2 black men who were waiting to have a meeting. Some have called the training a cynical marketing ploy. Others, a good first step. We wanted to hear from someone who experienced it. We have on the phone a New York City-based Starbucks employee whose name we're withholding and whose store we're not identifying because he is not authorized to speak for the company. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to us.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to ask you what the training was like.
Well, at first they brought half of the store into the back room and sat us all down and explained, what happened, if people who didn't know what happened. And then they split us into groups and they gave us iPads, and they had videos on the iPads that went through, I guess, all the things they wanted to touch upon. And they also gave us notebooks and packets that we had to fill out. And the experience was good. But I mean, when we talked about it and discussed as a group, the point of it wasn't really to try to take away people who felt certain ways towards other people. It was more of trying to make you realize your unconscious bias towards certain types of people and how they look or what they're doing.
Right.
So a lot of the training was people misinterpreting something, like someone trying to take a cup, like walking back and forth with it, or someone trying to panhandle and talk about how, subconsciously we see a bunch of biases that our brain takes on that we don't really recognize. So it was kind of trying to make you more aware of, when you're being, I guess, biased towards a situation, so you could kind of cut that out.
Do you think that if a training like this had been done before the incident in Philadelphia, that might have changed the outcome? Or does it seem like the sort of thing that wouldn't have changed the outcome and is just, something they're doing now?
I mean, the training, I feel, for some people would, because I can't comment on how the person felt in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if somebody who was racist went through this training, I don't think they'll stop being racist. Because I don't think you can really change the way somebody thinks if it's like something that's been instilled in them since they were young. But I think it helped a lot of people. Like somebody in our meeting brought up that he didn't notice that sometimes he did do some of the things that they said, people do, and he'll be more aware of it now rather than jumping to an actual conclusion about like a certain type of person. Because one of them on there was about a husband walking up to a wife, and because he looked scruffy, the woman told him, like, there's no panhandling here. But she didn't know that. So he said it makes him more aware sometimes of, like, when he might do something like that instead of just outright doing it without thinking the next time.
Is there anything that you think they could have done better? Do you think it could have gone further, that it should have gone further, or do you think it was right where it should have been?
I think for what had happened, it kind of touched perfectly where it's at. If it was a serious matter, like besides, obviously racism is serious, but, there was nobody actually hurt or killed or anything of that matter. But to where they wanted to, I guess, touch on and make, a point to where their employees should feel, then I think it touched good on that part.
Good. Well,
because,
good.
I was going to say, because for New Yorkers, for us, we're in the melting pot, so kind of all this stuff doesn't really, touch most of us in the store because we're not like that. But obviously, it was shown to 8,000 stores, so somewhere else,
Right.
could do well with it better than us. But my store mostly is the same type of people, like, everybody there comes from all different parts of New York. So it's like none of that has ever actually really happened to us or in our store to that extent.
So it's a different experience in different places. Maybe, if they do something like this again, maybe they'll tailor it a little bit more to the communities that the stores are actually in. That might be helpful. But thank you so much for being here today and for telling us about how this went. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's the show for today. Join us again tomorrow when we speak with a couple engaged in the climate change fight in two very different ways. See you then.